Hello, everyone. Welcome to the virtual opening of Fluid Dissonance, the brand new art exhibition presented by the West Vancouver Community Arts Council at the Silk Purse Art Center, featuring the amazing artwork of two very talented artists, Amber Lomax and Joanna Kim. We just opened today. It's pretty fantastic. The show is up here until April the 3rd, so please come in and check it out. And this evening, you're in for some great conversation with these two amazing artists and a sneak peek at some of the work you can expect to see when you come in. As you can see behind me, I'm right here in the Silk Purse Art Center, surrounded by the artwork of these two amazing artists, and coming to you live from the lands that are also known as West Vancouver, on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular the Squamish Nation, the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and the Musqueam Nation. And the Arts Council is incredibly grateful to be on these beautiful lands that our hosts and neighbors have been stewards of since time immemorial. And we have a pretty great evening lined up. I think I already said that. Yeah, so the exhibition here at the Silk Purse Art Center at 1570 Argyle Avenue, next to John Lawson Park, runs from now until April the 3rd. And we are open Wednesday through Sunday from 12 to 4. So come on in, check out this amazing artwork. And if tonight you have anything you want to say to any of our artists here, a little comment, a question, please drop it in the chat and we will get to that near the end of the evening. So Fluid Dissonance is it's a pretty great name, and I think it speaks really well to all of the artwork that's around here. And it deals with a lot of great themes of introspection and identity and the subconscious, and exploring that through a visual medium. So to hear a little bit more about our artists, we're going to throw it over to them to tell you a bit about themselves. So let's start with Joanna Kim. Why don't you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna Kim. I'm a high school student at West Vancouver Secondary School. I'm currently in grade 12. I'm got into art because both of my parents are art teachers, so it's always sort of been in my family and in my life. I really love it. I take the IB diploma program at my school, so I've been really studying art intensively in the past 2 years through our visual arts program, and really just developing a collection of thematic works and delving into this sort of culture and identity sort of concept, which I've really been enjoying. So yeah.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Joanna. Let's turn it over to Amber Lomax. Amber, introduce yourself to our audience.
Oh, hi there. I'm an artist. I live in Souk on Vancouver Island. I use dream imagery, that's my thing, and I've been using that as a theme for maybe the last 5 years or so. I started painting I started painting before I moved here back in the UK, and I knew when I transitioned here that it was something I wanted to do a lot more of. So I've been sort of taking it a bit more seriously for the last 10 years. And then when I discovered that I could use dream imagery and dream symbolism, then that really took my interest. Yeah, before that, I was sort of painting anything that came my way, like teapots and apples and anything. But then you sort of find your groove.
Awesome. That's great. And that's very much, I think, what a lot of this exhibition is about, is finding your groove. Great little introduction, everyone. Thanks so much. Now we're going to take a quick little tour of the exhibition, so you can have a quick glance at some of the work produced by these very amazing artists. So just to give you a sample of what you'll expect, and definitely coming in person is definitely the way to go to really experience everything. So this is just a view of coming in off of our waterfront entrance of everything up on the wall. So as you come in, we've got a great little book with all of our artists' bios. You can learn a little bit more about them. And then over on the east side of the gallery, we've got work from Joanna. We're going to hear a bit more about some of these pieces in more detail a little bit later on. There's a lot happening in them. There's a lot of great textures and shapes and colors. It's pretty interesting, Joanna. There's kind of, they work really well together, but almost two sort of series in one here. You've got work such as this, which is a little bit more representational and kind of surreal, next to these very fluid and abstract pieces. But they work very well together.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to work with the different types of textures and feelings, like you mentioned. And these two works particularly, I focused a lot more on my detailing and trying to bring a picture to life more so than in my more abstract pieces, where I try to bring my colors and shapes to life in a way. Yeah.
I feel like there's there feels like a similar kind of like tangled feeling in both of them. Even though one is abstract and one is representational, you get that feeling of being caught up in something. There's a lot of movement there, like sort of encircling.
Yeah, that's spot on. Totally what I'm trying to do here is sort of this connection and intertwined relationship between who you are and who you represent, and sort of these like difficult and complicated feelings that kind of work together and flow, right? Yeah.
And then we transition into Amber's work, which takes up the west side of the gallery. And again, with Amber's work, there's lots to see, lots to explore and find that's kind of hidden or partially hidden, for us to all sort of decipher and interpret.
Yeah, Amber really uses a beautiful combination of textures in her brushstrokes, especially like the varied opacities and things overlapping with her color palette. It's really pretty.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm not sure why I started doing that. I always feel like I'm sort of like pulling the image out of the paint, even though I'm painting. Like more like sculpture in a way, like thinking like a sculptor, like sort of carving it out rather than painting it, which is an odd way to work, I think. But...
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it a little more in depth later, but lots of great sort of repeated imagery and vocabulary, and like Joanna was saying, great use of colors.
Yeah, the colors really remind me of my friend mentioned when first visiting the gallery how both of our palettes really are colors of spring, and it kind of ties into the current season, and it's really nice. Yeah, sort of ushering in the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, that may have been planned to put this exhibition at this time of year.
Mhm.
And there's a great fluidity to both of your works. Sometimes it's very obvious, and sometimes it's kind of hidden or layered underneath more solid shapes, which is another great element that ties your work together. Another great piece from Joanna here. And that's not everything. There's more artwork to see as you step out of the gallery and head towards our administration and gift shop. We've got these 3 great little 8x8s, 2 from Amber and 1 from Joanna. The scale is interesting compared to your other works, because both of you tend to work fairly large, but then to be able to bring in that same sense of grandness and to a degree claustrophobia, into these smaller pieces. It's a really interesting balance when you're working with different scales and how you're representing your work.
Mhm.
Awesome. So that's just a quick little taste of the exhibition. So please come on in to the Silk Purse and see it in person. And just a reminder, if you have any questions or comments for our artists, drop them in the chat. So now that we've seen their great bodies of work, we're going to go a little in depth about some of their work. Each artist has chosen one piece, and they're going to talk a little bit more about the overall themes, inspirations, and techniques from the artwork that's on display here in Fluid Dissonance. So let's start off with Amber. Why don't we start off with you? I'm going to pull up your wonderful piece here called Hit and Sunk. Yeah, so take it away, Amber. Tell us more about this.
So this was really, the Hit and Sunk series was all about these 2 film noir detectives playing a game of battleships. And they were, I used the dream imagery. So these characters pop up in my dreams, and then you start researching them and you discover that detectives are these kind of archetypes, these Jungian archetypes. They're meant to be sort of visionary characters who are curious, perceptive. And in my dream, anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the dream because everybody knows dreams are boring. So they're quite different characters. There's one who's very organized and serious, and then there's another one who's like a complete slob who, like, drinks milk from the carton and stuff. Anyway, there's this dream where they're playing battleships, and it just seemed like such a good representation of all these, the 2 halves of your own brain who are kind of slugging it out, so you're taking shots, like you have all these good intentions of things you want to do. You're going to learn a new language, or you're going to, I don't know, take up sewing or something, like, so you've got really good intentions to lose weight. And then you've got this other half of you that's just like, no, that's not going to happen. You're going to have the cookie, you're going to watch Netflix, and you're going to, I don't know, but you can't always see these, like, you're not always aware of these 2 sides slugging it out, but they're always there. Like, and battleships is such a good metaphor for that, because you can't see the other person's boats. You just got this incoming fire. And the detectives, you've got these kind of like shadowy figures, just like causing chaos in your own mind. That's how they sort of came about. Anyway, that's the representation with those 2. That makes sense. And I suppose I can go further, because I took the theme of the battleships and being on water, because water is a very it's generally used to represent the subconscious. So that it's all taking place in this kind of watery world of these, I imagine the sort of like sinking, the whole game of Battleship sort of sinking underwater into this subconscious world. So you have, like, it's really hard to tell here, but there's actually like a jellyfish, and there's like little weird corals and things sort of popping up around. So it's kind of a watery world too.
Yeah, no, definitely that underwater feel 100% comes across. And as well as everything seems to kind of float around in sort of that sense as well. Under this environment that these detectives are exploring, it's almost like they're swimming through all of these things that are kind of floating around.
Yeah. It's sort of and then I just sort of took that with this series. It was unusual because they do crop up in quite a few dreams, so I kind of merged them so that it's not like I'm working on a series now and I'm just going to use one dream and I'm going to do the whole series on that. But these were quite a few dreams that I drew from. And then sometimes as well, sometimes it's like you have like a waking image, like you just get an image and it just persists as well. So like there was a whole kind of quite a few things feeding into this series. Sometimes it was dreams, and sometimes it's just like oh, I have to paint that because I can't move on until I paint it. So even though it's more of a thought than I guess a thought, but who knows? Who knows where these things come from? Who knows what we're tapping into?
I suppose that's what this body of work is about. I suppose what these detectives are kind of searching for.
Yes, yeah. Rummaging through the shadows.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights, Amber.
You're welcome.
That was another thing. Great. That was wonderful. So now we're going to hear from Joanna about a great piece of hers. Awesome. Joanna, this is the work you've chosen to talk about, so please take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So like we briefly touched on earlier, my body of works that I'm exhibiting has sort of an abstract element and also a more figurative element. This is one of my more abstract conceptual pieces that I worked on with alcohol ink and tons of different dry materials with gesso that I've sort of developed into my own sort of technique, sort of just how Amber did with her pieces as well, is sort of creating your own method of work. So with these and my other fluid alcohol ink pieces, I am sort of creating a base layer of alcohol ink and then using soft pastel or charcoal and gesso to sort of fine tune these shapes and create these deep textures, sort of working with this mountainous landscape. So in all of my works, I'm sort of connecting to my Korean culture and heritage, and sort of keeping in these elements of Korean culture. In these ones, I have sort of an homage to traditional Korean mountain paintings called minhwa. Not necessarily mountains, also like nature and trees and landscapes, beautiful landscapes. So I'm sort of taking my own spin on it, sort of how I interpret these like old traditional paintings into breathing a new life into them, and sort of working in that way. What I found really interesting about these mixing these mediums together is that with the gesso, I would, because all of this was experimentation for me, I would do a layer of gesso and then sort of let that dry and then rub in soft pastel on top of that, because it would only stick to the gesso and not the Yupo paper underneath, which is a sort of plastic-like paper. So that was really fun to work with and sort of helped create this blurry sort of fog-like texture alongside these really hard charcoal lines. So yeah, that's my experimentation.
Very cool. Very great, Joanna. Thank you so much. That was great to hear, a little bit about sort of technique and experimentation. That's something that really comes through in the body of work that you've presented, not just in your media, but also marrying themes and imagery and idea. It's really an experimental body of work,
yeah,
which is
I found
always
that,
exciting.
Yeah, I know. I found that being an art student rather than a professional practicing artist, I'm always looking at different ways to interpret things and illustrate things. So yeah, a lot of my work is pretty experimental, sort of finding my own path, right? Yeah. But I really like how Amber and I's work together really well. She mentioned how a lot of her pieces have this underlying oceanic sort of floating nature, and I feel like in a similar sense, like I've got mountains instead of oceans, and we're all sort of floating in this sort of subconscious kind of theme, and it's nice. Yeah.
No, definitely. And the sort of fluidity that's present in both of your works is quite interesting. How they've come together in not just the actual motion of, say, the paint or the ink or the line, but also the fluidity of what is being interpreted and what is being said, and how people can experience that on sort of in different waves or peaks and valleys of their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, I just love fluid paints. I love pouring paint. I love swishing it around. Like, I think there's something very fun about that as an artist, because it's out of your control to an extent. So it's like an opportunity to kind of let go a bit and just have an element of chance in there, and just it's completely absorbing as well. Like when you're doing it, when you're pouring paint or when you're moving paint around, it really takes a lot of your attention and focus. So it's quite like almost like a meditation, I suppose, because you know, like I know this sounds weird, but like you can sit there and watch it dry because it will change, like it's moving into it, like it's sort of like merging into each other, puddles and things like that. It's like, it's quite fun. Like, I live in Soup.
Yeah.
There's not
No,
a lot
but I can totally relate to that.
and...
Yeah. Yeah, especially working with like alcohol ink, for example, because of the nature of it, it dries so quickly. So manipulating it and watching it dry, like even is really fun, and it's really interesting how like it lives on its own, and so you're kind of just like guiding it more than creating anything. Yeah.
Yeah. That balance between sort of intent and spontaneity is pretty interesting. Why do you think each of you are kind of drawn to working that
way? Well, I think at least in my like my landscape, like mountain pieces, I'm working a lot with just the feeling and the motion of mark making in itself, and so I really like just the process of it as well. So I feel like that sort of leads to the spontaneity of it, is sort of working with like a non-concrete composition and sort of creating it as you go. Is spontaneous because the medium itself is unpredictable, but also like you don't know where you're going either, which is, it's fun. Yeah.
when I first started pouring paint, I did try just doing some completely abstract paint pours, which I absolutely love doing as well. But it's just over so quickly, you know, like you just pour it and then it's done, and it's like, oh. So I think it's two halves of my brain. I think it's really just two halves of my brain. One loving, it's like the detectives, I guess. There's one half that really loves the chaoticness of pouring, and there's another half that's like, no, we got to make this ordered, you know. We got to bring some order to this. So it's satisfying both sort of needs in me.
Yeah, because as both of you have said a number of times, duality is really a major part of your artwork. Definitely in this exhibition, and probably going forward, because you both seem very intelligent and introspective, and wanting to explore things like that. What do you sort of hope visitors might take out of your explorations into these sort of dualities?
I think I would love it if people, maybe if they haven't really thought about their dreams as being information that they could use, that would be really good. If they start, maybe, you know, like, oh, I had that weird dream, and they didn't just like put it down to what they, you know, something they watched on TV or whatever, and they started thinking about perhaps the meaning that some meanings relevant to them. Because I think as well, people get thrown off because there's like all those dream dictionaries and whatever, and you'll look it up and they'll say things like, you know, like you're going to have good fortune or something like that because you dreamt of some biscuits. Like, I think it would be nice if people realize that if you can think about your own meanings of things and what they mean to you, and how that symbolism, you know, the symbolism in your own life, maybe that would be something that I would be quite, you know, I'd be like, oh, that'd be cool if somebody saw that and thought about their own world. That would be good. Yeah.
I think sort of on a similar way, having them take away like a small piece of what your art represents. In my work, I have a lot of this sort of connection and relationship to your culture and who you are as like your ethnic identity, I guess, rather than your like subconscious dream state identity. So if people are able to sort of observe my reconnection with my culture, if they have a similar disconnect, if they want to maybe think about that one more time, I thought that'd be nice.
Yeah, connection is definitely a big part of the themes of both of your artwork. It's pretty great to see them play off of each other and how they oppose and complement each other. And something else that is a bit of a connective tissue is, Amber put it a great way the other day when she was dropping off her work, was building a visual vocabulary. Each of you really does that in your own very distinct ways in your artwork. Do you think that's something that you'll continue to develop? These particular vocabularies and ideas, or are you just ready to go off and try a whole bunch of new stuff?
I think that's a great concept to think about. This idea of vocabulary and visually, artistically. I think even if we do try something completely new, you learn from your past vocabularies and you sort of build on them. So I think that sort of growth as an artist is really important. And I think like at least I would love to continue this idea of like, at least even in my experimentation, I've learned so much from just like playing with the medium. So I think sort of building on that as well building on your themes and building on who you are as an artist is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm still building my vocabulary all the time, adding to it. And I like to try different things, and it is like reassuring when it still looks like your work, because there's been a whole period where, and I suppose that's when, like, that's where the vocabulary comes in, like you start to pick up on certain things that you like doing and shapes you like and things that you like, and they'll keep coming up again and again. And I noticed that I often do that subconsciously. Sometimes I do it very intentionally, and sometimes I don't. Like, sometimes I'll go back to old work and be like, oh, look, there's the swimmers or divers again. I forgot about that piece. It's like that's where it started, and you just forget. And but yeah, I think the language, yeah, like I say, sometimes intentionally it's there, and sometimes it's just things repeat in your work without even realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And so part of the title of the exhibition, I know we've covered a lot of the fluid part, but the title of the exhibition is Fluid Dissonance. I think you've both probably touched a little bit on this in your work, but what is it? What is so dissonant about the pieces that you're creating, or the themes that you're tackling, that you'd like to express through the mediums that you're using?
Well, exploring sort of my culture and my relationship to my cultural identity, that really stemmed from my experience as a Korean Canadian student, being born to Korean parents, but living in a Western Canadian society, and sort of having that disconnect to what I thought was my culture. So sort of a dissonance in yourself of not really knowing, like, where do you belong, in terms of, like, am I Canadian, am I Korean, like, what makes up who I am, and sort of interpreting that through art in sort of like, where do I root myself, and like, if that has to be strictly related to a culture, or it could just be like building yourself in your art. So sort of a dissonance and reconnection from that, I think, was my interpretation.
Yeah, that was something that when we were coming up with the title, we were talking, that was one of the things we found in common, wasn't it? That we were both trying to sort of like reconcile two things.
Mm-hmm.
And you came up with the word dissonance, and I had to look it up. I was like, wow, that's great. That's perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just really love what you just said then. It's about who am I? And I think that's so perfect, because I think that's what, I suppose, essentially what I'm trying to do with the dream imagery and looking inside that way, like, who am I? Where is this coming from? What does it mean? And you're looking at it a similar way in, through your culture and identity, and the gaps between, what's the external self and the internal, and for you as expectations, or how do these two things interplay within myself. So yeah, I think it's a whole show about looking inside, and like how all these things are playing out, the gap between sort of reality and external and internal, I guess.
Yeah.
Excellent. And doing it through these amazing shapes and fascinating textures and beautiful colors, and great little journeys to travel through all of this artwork. Well put, both of you. This is fascinating. So I think we're pretty good. I think we can wrap things up for this evening. again, please come on down to the Silk Purse Arts Center here in West Vancouver, next to John Lawson Park, to see Fluid Dissonance featuring the artwork of Amber Lomax and Joanna Kim. It is on from March 9th until April the 3rd. So please check it out. Take in all this amazing artwork. Think about what you've heard tonight. Come up with your own interpretations and ideas. And thank you, Joanna, and thank you, Amber, for sharing your wonderful work with us and your fascinating insights this evening. You've left us with a lot to think about.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting us use your space. It's lovely.
Yeah, so exciting.
It is very exciting. I really love the show. It's really great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, and thank you everyone watching for tuning in and sharing this evening with us. And again, please come on down and experience this artwork in person. So until then, take care and have a wonderful evening, everyone.